The morning sun rose over New Hebron like it had for the past 12 years since humans first settled this world. Sarah Chen stood on her balcony, drinking coffee and watching farmers head to their fields. The colony was small, just 50,000 people who wanted a quiet life away from Earth's crowded cities. They grew food, raised children, and dreamed of the future. Sarah was the colony administrator, which meant she handled problems like water disputes and trade schedules. It was boring work and she liked it that way. Her biggest worry today was approving a new school construction project. Commander Marcus Webb was less relaxed. He stood in the militia headquarters studying the outdated defense console with a frown. The orbital platforms were 20 years old. The frigate in orbit, the CNS Defender, was even older. His militia numbered only 300 people, most of them farmers who trained on weekends. "We should request newer equipment," his deputy said. Marcus shook his head. "Earth says we're too far out. Low priority. Besides, who would attack us? We're just farmers." He had no idea how wrong he was. The Zarathi ships appeared without warning. One moment the sky was empty. The next 15 massive warships hung in orbit like dark moons. Their hulls were black and covered in strange symbols. They dwarfed the small human frigate. Alarms screamed across the colony. Sarah ran to the command center, her coffee forgotten. Marcus was already there, his face pale as he stared at the screen. "They're hailing us," the communications officer said. The screen filled with an alien face. The Zarathi commander had 4 eyes, gray skin, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the translator made its voice cold and mechanical. "Human colony. You will surrender immediately. Your world now belongs to the Zarathi Concordat. You will provide resources and labor. Resistance means death." Sarah stepped forward. "This is Administrator Chen. We're a peaceful colony. We have nothing you want. Please just leave us alone." The alien's laugh sounded like grinding metal. "You have everything we want. Land, water, workers. You have 10 minutes to comply." The screen went dark. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. "We need to evacuate now. Get everyone to the shelters and start loading the transports." "What about fighting back?" someone asked. Marcus looked at his small force and the ancient weapons. "We'll buy time. That's all we can do." The 10 minutes passed in heartbeats. Sarah coordinated the evacuation while Marcus positioned his militia at key points. Young engineer Kira Okonkwo worked frantically to bring the orbital platforms online, even though she knew they were useless against such a fleet. The Zarathi didn't wait for an answer. Fire rained from the sky. The orbital platforms exploded like fireworks. The CNS Defender fought bravely, firing every weapon it had, but 3 Zarathi ships surrounded it. Within minutes, the frigate was debris floating in space. Then the bombardment began. Plasma beams turned buildings into ash. Kinetic rounds hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The ground shook so hard that people couldn't stand. The beautiful farms burned. The new school that Sarah had worried about that morning simply ceased to exist. People ran screaming toward the spaceport. Parents carried children. The elderly struggled to keep up. Transport ships launched as fast as they could load passengers, racing toward the sky while debris fell around them. Marcus and his militia fought a desperate holding action near the main evacuation point. Zarathi dropships landed and alien soldiers poured out. They were tall, armored, and carried weapons that melted through human cover like butter. "Fall back," Marcus shouted. His people fought building to building, giving up ground slowly. Each minute they held meant another 100 civilians could escape. A plasma bolt hit Marcus in the shoulder. He screamed but kept firing. Around him, his militia died one by one. These were people he knew, friends, family. The woman who ran the bakery fell beside him. The schoolteacher who coached his daughter's soccer team died covering their retreat. Sarah made it to the last transport. She turned back and saw the colony burning. Thousands were already dead. Thousands more were trapped, being rounded up by Zarathi soldiers. "We have to go," the pilot shouted. "Now! Wait," Sarah pleaded. "There are more people coming. If we wait, we all die." Kira Okonkwo pulled Sarah into the transport. The young engineer had ash on her face and tears in her eyes. The door closed and the ship lifted off just as a plasma beam melted the landing pad where they had stood. Through the window, Sarah watched her home die. The colony she had built. The place where she had been happy. All of it gone in minutes. Marcus was still down there. He knew he was going to die. With the last of his strength, he crawled to a communication terminal. His hands shook as he recorded a message and set it to broadcast to every human frequency in known space. This is Commander Marcus Webb of New Hebron Colony. The Zerathi Concordat attacked us without provocation. They gave us 10 minutes. We're a farming colony. We have families, children. They didn't care. Most of us are dead. The rest will be slaves. This is our final transmission. He coughed and blood came up. His vision was fading. They came for the weak. They thought we wouldn't fight back. They thought nobody would care about a small colony on the frontier. They were wrong about the first part. I hope they're wrong about the second. Remember us. Remember what they did. Please remember us. The transmission ended. Commander Marcus Webb died defending people who couldn't defend themselves. In orbit, the last transport ships jumped to faster-than-light travel. Sarah Chen held Kira Okonkwo as they both cried. Behind them, New Hebron burned. 40,000 people were dead or captured. The Zerathi had won easily. But Marcus's message was already racing through space at light speed, jumping from relay to relay. It would reach Earth in 72 hours. When it did, everything would change. The Zerathi didn't know it yet, but they had made the worst mistake in their 300-year history. They had killed human children, and humanity was about to remind the galaxy why you should never, ever hurt their families. The message reached Earth on a Tuesday afternoon. Within an hour, every screen on the planet showed Marcus Webb's dying words. Within 2 hours, Earth's government declared a state of emergency. Within 6 hours, humanity was at war. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Dozens of alien species gathered in the Great Hall, their representatives speaking in careful diplomatic tones. They called for restraint, for measured responses, for negotiations. The Zerathi Concordat is powerful, the Vrelian ambassador said through his translator. They control 40 worlds. They have the third largest fleet in the galaxy. One human colony is unfortunate, but escalation would be unwise. The human ambassador, an older woman named Patricia Reeves, stood slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold. With respect, Ambassador, you don't understand. This isn't about territory. This isn't about resources. They murdered our children. There will be no negotiation. There will be no measured response. There will be justice. The Vrelian's tentacles twitched nervously. His species had been around long enough to know human history. Earth had unified 50 years ago after the Unification Wars. Conflicts so brutal that entire continents had burned. Humanity had promised to be peaceful after that. They had kept that promise. Until now, what will you do? The Vrelian asked quietly. Whatever it takes, the Zerathi representative laughed. It was a mistake. The humans threaten us? We who have conquered 40 species? Your little colony was weak. You sent farmers to space with no protection. That is not our fault. In the galaxy, the weak serve the strong. Accept this, or join your colony in death. Patricia Reeves looked at the Zerathi with an expression that made several nearby ambassadors step back. You'll regret those words. Earth is coming, and we don't take prisoners. Back on Earth, the machinery of war awoke. Factories that had been making starships for exploration stopped, retooled, started again, making warships. The production facilities worked 24 hours a day. New ships rolled out every 6 hours. Recruitment centers opened before dawn and didn't close until midnight. The lines stretched for blocks. Young people, old people, men and women and everyone in between. They all wanted the same thing, to make the Zerathi pay. My son was on New Hebron, one old man said to the recruiter. I'm 70 years old, but I can still shoot. Send me, they sent him. They sent everyone they could train. Admiral Elizabeth Zhao stood in the command center of the UTS Vengeance, Earth's newest and largest dreadnought. She was 52 years old, a career officer who had fought in the Unification Wars. She thought those days were behind her. She was wrong. The president of Earth had called her personally. Liz, we need someone who knows how to win ugly, someone who won't hesitate. Can you do this? Give me a fleet and I'll bring our people home, Zhao had answered. Now she had her fleet, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. 847 ships, 12 dreadnoughts, each one 5 kilometers long, 3 supercarriers, each holding 200 fighter craft, hundreds of destroyers, frigates, and cruisers, and the weapon platforms, new designs that made use of technology Earth had kept secret since the unification. Why did we hide these weapons? Her second officer asked, watching railgun tests on the screen. The magnetically accelerated projectiles moved at a significant fraction of light speed. Nothing in the galaxy could stop them. Because we hoped we'd never need them again, Zhao said quietly. We saw what we were capable of during the unification. We scared ourselves. So we built them and locked them away, hoping they'd rust. But the Zerathi just reminded us why we built them in the first place. In the shipyards around Earth and Mars, engineers worked miracles. Civilian cargo ships were stripped down and fitted with missile batteries. Old warships from the unification were pulled out of mothballs and upgraded. Mining vessels had mass drivers installed, turning them into kinetic bombardment platforms. The galaxy watched in shock. Most species took years to mobilize for war. Humanity did it in 30 days. The news network showed families saying goodbye to soldiers, showed factory workers welding ship hulls, showed children making care packages for the troops. But most of all, they showed Marcus Webb's message over and over again. Remember us, he had said. Humanity remembered. The Zerathi tried to spin the story. They released propaganda saying New Hebron had been a military outpost, that humans had fired first, that they were the victims. Nobody believed them. The galaxy had seen Marcus's message, had seen the farms burning, had heard him coughing up blood as he died. Some species privately contacted Earth, offering support. The Vrelians sent intelligence about Zerathi fleet positions. The Kathrani, who had been conquered by the Zerathi centuries ago, sent star charts. Even species that feared humanity offered quiet help, because everyone agreed what the Zerathi did was wrong. On day 30, Admiral Zhao addressed her fleet. 847 ships hung in space around Earth, each one crewed and ready. Hundreds of thousands of men and women in uniform, all volunteers, all angry. I won't lie to you, Zhao said, her voice broadcast to every ship. The Zerathi are experienced. They're tough. They have more ships than us in total. But they've never faced us. They've never faced humanity when we're truly angry. They killed our people, our families. They think we're weak because we choose peace. Today we teach them the difference between choosing peace and being capable of war. The fleet roared approval. We're going to take back New Hebron. We're going to free our people. And we're going to make sure the Zerathi never ever hurt anyone again. No mercy, no quarter. They wanted war. We'll give them war. The ships began to move, hundreds of drives igniting simultaneously. It was beautiful and terrible, like watching a storm form in space. The fleet formed up and jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward New Hebron. As they traveled, Special Forces teams went ahead. Small, fast ships carrying humanity's best soldiers. They would arrive first, make contact with any resistance, gather intelligence. When the fleet arrived, they would know exactly where to hit. The journey would take 6 weeks. Zhao spent the time drilling her fleet, running simulations, studying Zerathi tactics. She learned that they relied on overwhelming force and shock value. They won quickly, then moved on, leaving small garrisons. They've never fought a prolonged conflict, her intelligence officer reported. Every species they conquered surrendered within days or weeks. Zhao smiled coldly. Then they're in for a surprise. Humans are stubborn. We'll teach them what it means to fight us. The Zerathi detected the approaching fleet 3 days out. Their commanders looked at the sensor readings and laughed. The humans were sending 800 ships. The Concordat had thousands. They dispatched 200 vessels to meet the humans at Proxima Reach, a star system 2 jumps from New Hebron. Destroy them, the Zerathi High Command ordered. Show these mammals their place. The trap was set. The Zerathi fleet waited in ambush, confident in their superiority. They had conquered 40 species with these tactics. Humanity would be number 41. Admiral Zhao reviewed the intelligence from her scouts. She knew the Zerathi were waiting. She knew their positions. She smiled. All ships, prepare for combat. Show them what happens when you hurt humanity's children. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel right on top of the Zerathi position. The Battle of Proxima Reach had begun. On New Hebron, Kira Okonkwo crawled through the ruins of what used to be her neighborhood. 2 months had passed since the attack. The Zerathi had taken over completely, turning the surviving humans into slaves. They worked in the mines extracting rare minerals. They repaired damaged buildings. They served their conquerors and died quietly when they became too weak to work. But some humans refused to die quietly. Kira had gathered 37 survivors who knew how to fight or were willing to learn. They hid in the underground maintenance tunnels beneath the colony. At night they struck. A patrol would disappear. A supply depot would explode. A Zirathi officer would be found dead in his quarters. The Zirathi responded with brutal reprisals. For every soldier killed, they executed 10 human prisoners. But the resistance didn't stop. They couldn't. Stopping meant accepting slavery, and humans were bad at accepting things. We hit the fuel depot tonight, Kira told her small group. She was only 26 years old, an engineer who had fixed water pumps before the invasion. Now she built bombs and planned ambushes. War changed people. They increased patrols after the last attack, one of her fighters said. His name was Daniel, a former teacher who had watched his students die in the bombardment. We'll lose people. We lose people every day, Kira said quietly. At least this way we make them pay for it. The mission went wrong. The Zirathi had indeed increased security. Kira's team managed to destroy the fuel depot, but 4 of her people died getting away. She held them as they bled out in the tunnels, promising them that Earth would come, that help was coming, even though she didn't really believe it herself. 3 systems away, human special forces had already arrived. Captain James Rodriguez commanded Shadow Team 7, 12 of humanity's most dangerous soldiers. They infiltrated New Hebron using a captured Zirathi transport, painted with false identification codes. We're in orbit, the pilot reported. Zirathi Traffic Control bought the codes. We're clear to land. Rodriguez studied the intelligence data. The Zirathi had 4,000 soldiers on the ground. They controlled the spaceport and all major installations. But their patrols followed predictable patterns. They had grown comfortable. Complacency kills, Rodriguez said. And they're about to learn that lesson the hard way. Shadow Team landed at night on the outskirts of the ruined colony. They moved like ghosts through the darkness, avoiding patrols, mapping Zirathi positions. Their mission was simple: find the resistance, make contact, gather intelligence for the main fleet. They found Kira 3 days later. She nearly killed them, thinking they were Zirathi wearing stolen armor. Rodriguez stopped her knife an inch from his throat. Easy, he said in English. We're UTS Special Forces. Earth sent us. We're the advance team. Kira stared at him. Then she started crying. She had held together for 2 months through terror and death and hopelessness. Now finally she could break down. Help had come. How many ships? She asked when she could speak again. 847, Rodriguez said. They'll be here in 3 days. Admiral Zhao is leading them. She's coming to take back New Hebron and make the Zirathi pay. The resistance fighters cheered quietly in the darkness. Rodriguez let them celebrate for a moment, then got to business. We need everything you know. Troop positions, defensive emplacements where they're keeping prisoners, weak points in their security. Kira pulled out hand-drawn maps. I've been documenting everything. I knew someone would come eventually. I had to believe that. Rodriguez smiled. Humanity doesn't abandon its own. We might take a while to get here, but we always come. Always. 4 light-years away, the Battle of Proxima Reach ended in complete human victory. The Zirathi had expected a standard engagement. They got something else entirely. Admiral Zhao's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. The Zirathi opened fire immediately. Confident in their plasma cannons and missile systems, they had used these weapons to conquer 40 species. Then the humans fired back. The railguns came first, magnetically accelerated projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed. The Zirathi shields were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not solid slugs moving at relativistic velocities. The projectiles punched through shields like they weren't there, tore through hulls like paper. 12 Zirathi ships died in the first salvo. Then came the drone swarms. Thousands of autonomous attack drones, each one loaded with explosives or equipped with shaped charges. They moved in coordinated patterns, overwhelming point defense systems. The Zirathi shot down hundreds, but thousands more got through. 20 more ships exploded. The Zirathi commander tried to regroup, to bring his superior numbers to bear. But the human fleet didn't fight like anything he had ever seen. They used the drones as shields, advanced behind them, picked off his ships one by one with those terrifying railguns. His fleet outnumbered the humans, but numbers didn't matter when every human shot was lethal. Fall back, he ordered. We need reinforcements. But Zhao had positioned destroyers on all the jump routes. The Zirathi ships trying to escape ran into ambushes. Missiles fired at point-blank range. More railgun fire. The retreat became a slaughter. 4 hours after it began, the Battle of Proxima Reach ended. 200 Zirathi ships destroyed. 0 human casualties. A few ships had damage, but not one human life was lost. The galaxy watched in shock. Species that had fought the Zirathi and lost looked at the battle recordings in disbelief. The Zirathi were supposed to be invincible. They had the third largest fleet in the galaxy, but the humans had cut through them like a hot knife through butter. Admiral Zhao broadcast a message on all frequencies. Every species in the galaxy heard it. The Zirathi High Command heard it. The captives on New Hebron heard it. This is Admiral Elizabeth Zhao of the United Terran Systems. To the Zirathi Concordat, you attacked a colony of farmers and families. You murdered 40,000 humans. You enslaved the survivors. You thought we wouldn't respond or that we were too weak to matter. She paused, letting the silence stretch. You were wrong. We are coming to New Hebron. We are coming to free our people. We are coming for you. And I want you to understand something very clearly. You touched our children. You killed our families. We will never forgive that. We will never forget that. This isn't about territory or resources. This is about justice, and we will have it no matter the cost. Another pause. You will surrender unconditionally or you will die. There is no third option. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of when we're pushed? You're about to find out. You touched our children. Now face their parents. The message ended. The human fleet jumped toward New Hebron. On the planet, the Zirathi garrison commander heard the message. He looked at his 4,000 soldiers, at the aging defensive platforms, at the fortifications they had built. He thought about the 200 ships that had just been destroyed without inflicting a single human casualty. Contact High Command, he said quietly. Request reinforcements. All available reinforcements. We're going to need them. But in his heart, he knew it wouldn't be enough. The humans were coming and they were very, very angry. His species had spent 300 years conquering the weak. They had never faced someone who refused to stay conquered. They had never faced humanity. That mistake would cost them everything. The Zirathi High Command met in their war room on their capital world. They were old, powerful, and for the first time in 3 centuries they were afraid. The recordings from Proxima Reach played on repeat. 200 ships gone. Not one human casualty. This is impossible, one commander said. Their technology shouldn't be this advanced. Our intelligence said they were a young species. Barely space capable? Our intelligence was wrong, the Supreme Commander replied. His 4 eyes watched the battle footage again, seeing those railgun projectiles tear through shields and armor. They hid their true capabilities. Question is, why? An intelligence officer spoke up nervously. We've been researching human history. Before they unified, they fought among themselves. Brutal wars, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. They nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. When they finally achieved peace 50 years ago, they locked away their military technology, hoped they'd never use it again. Until we gave them a reason, the Supreme Commander said quietly. What do we do? Another commander asked. They're heading to New Hebron. We have 4,000 troops there. Pull forces from the Kelthera and Vryn sectors. Send 600 ships to New Hebron. Fortify the planet. Use the human prisoners as shields if needed. The humans are emotional creatures. They won't risk their own people. The Supreme Commander gave the orders, but he wasn't sure they would work. The humans had a saying they had discovered in their research. Don't mistake kindness for weakness. The Zirathi were beginning to understand what that meant. 600 Zirathi warships converged on New Hebron over the next week. The garrison commander, General Krathus, organized his defenses. He positioned his forces in orbit, used the captured humans as labor to build fortifications, and prepared for the coming storm. Place human prisoners in all major installations, he ordered. The supply depot, the command center, the landing zones. If the humans want to free their people, they'll have to go through them. It was a desperate tactic, and Krathus knew it. But he had seen what happened at Proxima Reach. He needed every advantage he could get. On the surface, Kira Okonkwo and the Resistance worked with Captain Rodriguez's special forces. They mapped every Zirathi position, identified where prisoners were held, planned the ground assault that would come when the fleet arrived. They're using our people as shields, Kira said, pointing to a map. Every major installation has human prisoners inside or nearby. Rodriguez nodded. Admiral Zhao expected that. We have plans. The Zirathi think we'll hesitate to fire if our people are at risk. They're half right. We won't fire indiscriminately, but we will fire, and we'll be precise enough that only Zirathi die. That confident in your aim? Kira asked. That confident in our resolve, Rodriguez corrected. The Zerathi don't understand what they've triggered. They think this is a war. It's not. It's an extermination. Every Zerathi soldier on this planet dies. The only question is how many humans we can save in the process. The human fleet arrived on a Monday morning, New Hebron local time. 847 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. On the ground, human prisoners looked up and started crying. In the sky, they could see the ships like new stars appearing. General Krathus hailed the human fleet. This is General Krathus of the Zerathi Concordat. You are outgunned. We have 600 ships to your 800. We control the planet. We have 10,000 human prisoners. If you attack, they die. Withdraw and we can negotiate terms. Admiral Zhao's response was brief. General Krathus, I have only one term, unconditional surrender. You have 10 minutes to comply. The same 10 minutes you gave the colonists before you murdered them. You won't fire while we have hostages. Watch me. The human fleet opened fire. But they didn't target the ships in orbit. They targeted specific locations on the ground. Railgun fire, precisely calculated, hit Zerathi positions while avoiding the prisoner compounds. Missile strikes took out defensive installations. The special forces on the ground painted targets with lasers, and human ships in orbit hit them with surgical precision. Krathus watched in horror as his carefully planned defenses began to collapse. The humans weren't hesitating. They were firing with absolute precision, destroying his forces while leaving the prisoners untouched. He had never seen anything like it. All ships, engage, he ordered desperately. The Battle of New Hebron began in earnest. 600 Zerathi ships versus 847 human vessels. On paper, it should have been closer than Proxima Reach. In practice, it was another slaughter. The humans had learned Zerathi tactics. They knew how the Concordat fleet would deploy, how they would fight. And they had weapons the Zerathi couldn't counter. The railguns fired constantly, each shot destroying or crippling a ship. The drone swarms overwhelmed Zerathi defenses. Human fighters, piloted by men and women who had volunteered knowing they might not come back, struck with suicidal bravery. And the humans took losses this time. The Zerathi were fighting for their lives using every weapon they had. 30 human ships were destroyed on the first day. 2,000 sailors died in the cold of space. But for every human ship that fell, 5 Zerathi vessels died. On the ground, Rodriguez's special forces launched their assault. They hit every Zerathi position simultaneously. The resistance fighters who had survived 2 months of hell fought like demons. They knew the human fleet was here. They knew they were hours away from freedom. Every one of them was willing to die to make it happen. Kira led a team to free the prisoners in the main detention facility. She killed 4 Zerathi guards with a rifle she barely knew how to use a month ago, fighting with a fury born of months of helpless rage. When she opened the doors and saw her fellow colonists, skeletal and broken but alive, she fell to her knees and sobbed. "You're free," she said. "We're all free. Earth came for us." The battle raged for 8 days. 8 days of constant combat in space and on the ground. The Zerathi fought desperately, knowing they were losing but refusing to give up. The humans fought with cold precision, taking losses but never wavering. Admiral Zhao watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as the battle slowly turned into an execution. "Status?" she asked. 400 Zerathi ships destroyed, her tactical officer reported. 150 disabled. 50 retreating. We've lost 43 ships, 3,000 personnel killed, 8,000 wounded. No Zerathi ships leave this system, Zhao ordered. None. General Krathus wanted to know if we'd risk our people to get at his forces. He got his answer. Now he gets to see what happens when you murder human children. The human destroyers moved to cut off the retreat. The Zerathi ships trying to flee ran into fresh human forces. Some fought. Some tried to surrender. Zhao accepted no surrenders from ships, only the crews on the ground. The ones who laid down weapons and begged for mercy were taken prisoner. On day 8, General Krathus watched his last ships die. His defensive positions on the ground were overrun. Human Marines were fighting building to building, clearing out Zerathi soldiers with methodical efficiency. He had lost, completely, utterly. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Zhao. "I surrender." The Zerathi Concordat surrenders. "Stop the killing." Zhao looked at him with cold eyes. "You surrendered?" "That's nice. Unfortunately, General, this doesn't end here. You didn't just attack a colony. You attacked humanity, and we're going to make sure you never attack anyone again. Every military installation in the Concordat will be destroyed. Your fleets will be scuttled. Your weapons will be confiscated. And every person responsible for the decision to attack New Hebron will stand trial for war crimes. You can't, Krathis said. The galaxy won't allow it. The other species watched you murder 40,000 farmers. Zhao interrupted. They'll watch us dismantle your empire and they won't lift a finger to stop us. Because you made everyone realize something important. If we'll do this to you for killing our people, imagine what we'd do to someone who tried to stop us from getting justice. She leaned forward. You touched our children, General. Now you lose your worlds. The transmission ended. Krathis was taken into custody by human marines. The battle was over. New Hebron was free. But Admiral Zhao didn't turn her fleet around. Instead, she pointed it towards Zerathi space. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the third time in as many months. The ambassadors from hundreds of species watched footage from the Battle of New Hebron. 600 Zerathi ships destroyed. The planet liberated. And now the human fleet wasn't going home. Admiral Zhao has announced her intention to advance into Zerathi territory, the council speaker said. She states that the Concordat's military capabilities must be permanently eliminated to prevent future attacks on human colonies or other species. The council must vote on whether to sanction this action. The Vrelian ambassador spoke first. The humans have every right to defend themselves, but this goes beyond defense. This is invasion. This is conquest. Where does it end? Patricia Reeves, Earth's ambassador, stood calmly. It ends when the Zerathi can never threaten anyone again. They've conquered 40 species over 3 centuries. Billions of beings have suffered under their rule. We're not conquering them. We're liberating their victims and ensuring they can't create more victims. And if they surrender, if they disarm, another ambassador asked. Then we'll accept their surrender, Reeves said. But we'll verify their disarmament personally. The Zerathi have lost the right to be trusted. The vote was close, but the council decided not to interfere. Too many species remembered being conquered by the Zerathi. Too many had lost people to the Concordat's expansion. If humanity wanted to break the Zerathi, the galaxy would look the other way. Admiral Zhao stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking at the star charts. The Zerathi Concordat controlled 68 systems across 4 sectors. Her fleet of 800 ships minus the 43 lost at New Hebron would need to systematically neutralize all of them. It'll take months, her tactical officer said. Then it takes months, Zhao replied. We're not going home until this is finished. Send a message to Earth. We need reinforcements, supplies, and replacement crews for the damaged ships, and tell them to send the war crime investigators. We're going to need them. The human fleet began its march through Zerathi space. World after world, they arrived with overwhelming force. They broadcast the same message each time. Surrender your military forces. Free all conquered species. Submit to war crimes investigations. Comply and you live. Resist and you die. Some worlds surrendered immediately. The humans confiscated weapons, freed slaves, and left small occupation forces to ensure compliance. They didn't harm civilians. They didn't loot. They were remarkably disciplined for an angry species seeking vengeance. Other worlds fought. Those battles were brief and brutal. The human fleet had lost ships at New Hebron, but Earth had sent reinforcements, fresh crews, new vessels. The industrial might of humanity was fully mobilized, and nothing in the galaxy could match it. 6 weeks into the campaign, the human fleet liberated the Kelthera homeworld. The Kelthera had been conquered by the Zerathi 200 years ago, had suffered under occupation for generations. When human marines entered the capital and tore down the Zerathi flag, millions of Kelthera poured into the streets celebrating. Their elder approached Admiral Zhao. Why? The old alien asked through a translator. Why do you do this for us? We are not your people. Zhao looked at the celebrating crowds. Because nobody should live in fear. Because what happened to our colony could happen to anyone. Because we have the power to stop the Zerathi, and that means we have the responsibility to stop them. The Kelthara elder wept. For 200 years we prayed someone would help us. The galaxy ignored our suffering. But you came. We came, Zhao agreed, and we'll keep coming until every being the Zerathi enslaved is free. The Kelthara joined the human fleet. So did the Vryn, another liberated species, and the Tethians, and the Morphians. Species that had been conquered, that had lost hope, suddenly had it back. They brought ships, supplies, and soldiers. The human fleet grew larger. The Zerathi High Command watched their empire crumble. They pulled back their forces, abandoning outer colonies to defend the core worlds. They sent peace delegations. They offered reparations. They promised to reform. Zhao rejected every offer. The time for negotiation was before you murdered 40,000 farmers. Now we're past talking. Now we're fixing the problem you created. 5 months after the liberation of New Hebron, the human fleet reached Zyrath Prime, the Zerathi homeworld. The Concordat had assembled their last forces there. 1,200 warships, everything they had left. Every vessel they could crew. Every weapon they could deploy. This was their final stand. The human fleet had grown to 2,100 ships. 800 of them human vessels. The rest from freed species who wanted justice or revenge or both. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in known galactic history. The two forces faced each other in orbit around Zyrath Prime. On the planet, below, 4 billion Zyrathi civilians watched the sky and prayed. The Zerathi Supreme Commander made one last broadcast. Admiral Zhao, you have won. The Concordat is broken. Our empire is finished. But if you attack our homeworld, billions of civilians will die. Is your revenge worth that price? Zhao's response was measured. Supreme Commander, I have no interest in killing civilians. Surrender your fleet. Stand trial for your crimes. Accept the terms we've offered and your people live. Fight and your military dies, but we'll still do everything we can to minimize civilian casualties. Unlike you, we don't target the innocent. You give me no choice. You had a choice 3 months ago. You had it when you chose to attack New Hebron. Every decision since then has just been consequences. The Battle of Zyrath Prime lasted 4 hours. 1,200 Zerathi ships against 2,100 allied vessels. It wasn't even close. The Zerathi fought bravely, defending their homeworld with desperate courage. But courage wasn't enough against railguns and drone swarms and a fleet that had spent months perfecting combined arms tactics. Human and allied forces targeted military ships exclusively. When Zerathi vessels tried to hide in civilian orbital stations, the humans used precision strikes to disable them without harming the civilians. When the Concordat fleet tried to use the planet's atmosphere as cover, human fighters followed them down, engaging in dogfights over Zerathi cities but never firing on civilian targets. The battle was fierce, but it was never in doubt. One by one, the Zerathi warships fell. Some exploded. Some surrendered when their shields failed. Some tried to run and were hunted down by human destroyers. When the last Zerathi warship surrendered, Admiral Zhao broadcast to the planet below. People of Zyrath Prime, the battle is over. Your military has surrendered. You are not our enemy. Your leadership is. Your soldiers are, but not you. We're going to occupy your world temporarily, dismantle your military infrastructure, and ensure you never threaten anyone again. But we're not here to harm civilians. We're not here to conquer. We're here to fix what your government broke. In the months that followed, humanity kept its word. The Zerathi military was completely dismantled. War crimes trials were held. The Supreme Commander and his staff were convicted and imprisoned. The Concordat was dissolved, and every species they had conquered was granted independence. Human forces occupied Zerathi worlds for 2 years, ensuring compliance and helping rebuild. They didn't take territory. They didn't demand tribute. They just made sure the Zerathi couldn't threaten anyone ever again. On New Hebron, the colony was rebuilt. Earth sent resources, volunteers, and support. The population grew as survivors returned and new colonists arrived. A memorial was erected in the center of the new capital, listing every person who died in the attack. Admiral Zhao attended the dedication ceremony. Kira Okonkwo, now a hero and the colony's new security chief, stood beside her. Sarah Chen, who had survived the slave camps, gave the speech. "We lost 40,000 people," Sarah said. her voice strong despite her tears. We lost parents and children, teachers and farmers, friends and family. The Zerathi thought they could break us, thought they could take our home and we'd just accept it. They were wrong. She gestured to the memorial, a tall pillar of black stone with names carved into every surface. We remember every person we lost. We remember Commander Webb's last message. Remember us, he said. We remember. Earth remembered. The galaxy remembered. And because we remembered, because we refused to forget, the Zerathi learned a lesson that will echo through history. She turned to look at Admiral Zhao. They learned that humans don't abandon their own, that we choose peace, but we're capable of terrible things when peace fails, that if you hurt our families, we will move stars to stop you. Zhao stepped forward. 10,000 UTS personnel died liberating this colony and dismantling the Concordat. That's 10,000 men and women who volunteered knowing they might not come home. They did it because you mattered, because every human life matters, because we're humanity and we don't leave our people behind. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. In orbit, the new defense platform stood ready, state-of-the-art systems that would ensure New Hebron was never caught defenseless again. The colony had a standing defense force now, well-trained and well-equipped. Across the galaxy, other species looked at what humanity had done. They had seen the Zerathi, a powerful empire broken completely in 6 months. They had seen humanity's industrial might, their military capability, their absolute unwillingness to accept attacks on their people. Several species who had been considering expansion into human space quietly abandoned those plans. Others reached out with trade deals and mutual defense pacts. The message was clear. Humanity was peaceful by choice, not by necessity. Push them too far, and they'd push back harder than anyone thought possible. In the Human Senate on Earth, Admiral Zhao received the highest military honors. Then she retired, returning to civilian life. She had done what needed to be done, but it had cost her. She had nightmares about the ship she had destroyed, the Zerathi soldiers who had just been following orders, the civilians who had suffered in the crossfire despite her best efforts, but she didn't regret it. The Zerathi had killed children, had attacked farmers, had chosen to be monsters, and humanity had stopped them. Years later, a young Zerathi student asked her teacher why their species no longer had a military, why they had to report to the Galactic Council, why their empire had fallen. The teacher, old enough to remember the Concordat, said, "We made a mistake. We attacked a species called humanity. We thought they were weak because they were peaceful. We learned the difference. And now we teach our children, never mistake kindness for weakness. Never attack someone's family. And never, ever underestimate humanity." It became a saying across the galaxy, repeated by dozens of species. They touched the children. That's why there's no Concordat anymore. And humanity returned to peace, exploring the stars, making friends, building colonies. But every ship they built had weapons. Every colony had defenses. Because they had learned their lesson too. Hope for peace, but prepare for war. Be kind, but never be weak. And remember, always remember,